Welcome to the Wrap Up, guys, your daily dose of pop culture and movie news, hosted by me, Mr. H Reviews. On today's very special episode, we will be covering Godzilla King of the Monsters. No spoilers, we're taking a look at Rotten Tomatoes, what the critics have been saying in a non-spoiler fashion, and how it lines up with 2014's Godzilla, and also whether you should trust the critics at this point in time. For those that aren't aware, I was at the UK premiere of Godzilla King of the Monsters last night. My review will either be out now or it will be coming out after this video. So either way, stay tuned for that. But if it is out already, I've linked it down below in the description box. However, slight spoiler alert from me, I guess, for my thoughts on the film, it was good. I really enjoyed it. So, we'll be talking Godzilla King of the Monsters primarily today, but there's also two slight bits of news. We now know why Chris Hemsworth just canned Star Trek 4. We know why he turned it down. And then also there's been some interesting comments made by David Harbour, the Hellboy reboot star, about Hellboy and its very troubled production. So guys, if you are new here, please do hit subscribe to stay up to date on these, the Wrap Up, the show where I cover all of the latest in pop culture and movie news. And also, if you like this video, make sure to give it a like, because that really does actually help the channel out a lot more than you know. So what are we talking? Let's take a look. We will get straight into Godzilla. Godzilla. So, it had its Rotten Tomato score featured last night. It came out at, I think it was about 48%. Now, it's really important to note that actually, there's not been many people that have reviewed this movie as yet. Now, in terms of comparison, okay, so direct comparison, this Godzilla King of the Monsters is currently sitting at 55%. So it's going up. And it's had a total of, let's scroll down, 44 critics have reviewed it. Now, when we take a look at Godzilla, Godzilla has a lot more critics that have reviewed the movie. A total of 314, and it's sitting at 75%. So it's not really a surprise that Godzilla King of the Monsters is currently sitting less, I guess. But it is a surprise in terms of what the critics are saying about the film. And I also find it really quite comical when we take a look at what they're saying versus what they said about 2014. As yet, because we have such limited critics reviewing the movie, I actually haven't managed to find a direct comparison. There's a few companies here, so like The Wrap or AV Club, for instance, who have had different people review the films. So when we start to see more and more critics come in, we'll actually be able to do a direct comparison of what they said for 2014 versus what they said for this movie. But some of the comments are just so out there, and it really echoes to me how, you know, if you've got this blue check mark of being an approved critic or whatever for Rotten Tomatoes, it echoes to me just how far removed these individuals are from the fan base. And it's not just my thoughts, but it's not just like a biased belief. If we start to take a look at the actual comments here that are negative, and comments which are negative about the film, it shows a very clear disconnect from how a film has been marketed versus what the critics are expecting. All of the trailers feature jam-packed monster action. The first trailer was the only one which had any element of humans in it, really. The first trailer for Godzilla King of the Monsters had a lot of human interaction. That was the most that we'd seen. So I don't really know what any of these people were expecting. It's almost as if they didn't watch any trailers. Now remember, a trailer is a marketing piece for the movie. So logic would dictate it's, unless they're clickbaiting you, they're promising false promises, the trailer will be indicative of what the end film will be like. It's not always the case, of course, but it's an indication. This movie is about the monsters. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at some of these comments. So Brian Lowry of CNN.com Reviews.com said the net effect is more numbing than stirring, with only a few monster-on-monster tussles that come close to being worth the price of admission. I highly disagree. Highly disagree. But then we start to get to the interesting one. So, Katie Rife, of course the monsters should be the stars of a Godzilla movie, but until blockbuster filmmaking goes entirely non-narrative, some attention should be paid to the rest of it as well. But what do you want, guys? Because 2014's Godzilla, a lot of people were saying that there's not enough monster action. Now what we're hearing now is that there's not enough human action. Like, for goodness sake. Next you'll be saying, well, no, you won't. You won't be saying this because you love hero movies. But, it's almost as dumb as watching a superhero movie and saying there's too many superheroes in it. What are you expecting? And it's almost as if you've never seen a Godzilla film. Ever. Just to put it out there, anyone that is a Godzilla fan will love this film. Anyone who likes monster films will like this film. Anyone who is a big kid at heart will like this film. Kids will like this film. I'm not really sure what these people were expecting. Godzilla King of the Monsters is filled with epic battles. There we go. So kind of a direct contradiction to some of the other comments here, like the tussles, monster tussles. But there's little else to prove that this franchise deserved the chance to fight another day. No. The film is so dark and foggy, it makes that Game of Thrones episode everyone complained about look like a ray of sunshine. Now, for the South China Morning Post, I can confirm that it is dark, actually. And in my review, whether it's been released yet or not, I will touch on this because certain elements of the 2014 film, they absolutely rectified. But other elements, they didn't. And one of them is the dark tone of the film. It is a dark film. Literally, it is a dark film, which is an issue. And I can agree with this person here. But you can see stuff and you can still make it out. And the effects work is absolutely staggering. It's some of the best effects I've ever seen. So I'll be interested to see if anyone actually comments on that, to be fair. Steve Newell, a film that's frequently difficult to follow, bordering on the incoherent. Not exactly what one might be after in a giant monster action spectacular. Surely you're just after giant monsters, not a film that's easy to follow. I would have imagined anyway. And as well, like with respect to that, they've reduced the human narrative, but it's actually very childlike in what it's asking you to understand. And again, I would have probably touched on this in my review. It's really not that difficult to understand. I'm really surprised. The film spits out some of the most iconic monsters in this decade's-old cinematic universe, but all of the handsome pixels in the world aren't enough to prevent this from emerging as an outright monstrosity. So, look, you can see a lot of negativity, right? A lot of negativity. But let's take a look at Godzilla 2014. So, Godzilla handles everything the military hurls at him. Ships, guns, planes, rockets, even a squadron of Halo paratroopers. The only thing that cut him down to size is being relegated to a supporting role in his very own movie. So this first one that I've picked out is indicative of how people just don't know what they want anymore and they're so out of touch. They're saying that he's not in the movie enough, but then other people have said that there's not enough human narrative. Literally, I've just read some out that have said that. So it's so bizarre. The beasts just want to have fun, but the gravest letdown is Edward's film is that most of the time he fends off the chance to have fun himself. Not overly sure I agree with that, to be honest. Let's take a look at some of the negative ones. A bit of a mess. The film suffers exposition overload. So again, too much narrative. So then they reduce the narrative and then people are complaining that there's not enough narrative. So I wanted to bring you this piece because I thought that this would be interesting just to show you really how out of touch people are, especially these critics. Now, I'm of the firm belief that you can definitely have your own opinion. Of course. But some things are really undeniable. Like, what were you expecting when you saw the trailer? It's monsters. It's a giant monster movie. They don't give much narrative in the trailers anyway. You know, so I'm not really sure what you're expecting there. People complaining, their complaints about 2014's Godzilla have been rectified in this film, but then people are complaining about the rectification. So, like I said, those things are quite undeniable. You can't really argue with those factors here. So, in my eyes, Rotten Tomatoes is done. I mean, they've long been done anyway. But I think this really just goes to show how done they are. I may do an update video on this when we see like a direct comparison, when more critics' reviews come in. I will say this though, guys. This will go up. This tomato meter will go up. Because only 44 people have reviewed the film. It will absolutely go up. But I do feel like the initial reviews are very, very unfair on this film. It's a very good film. And it cracks me up as well. Like when you've got, a film like this. If this was superheroes, I think it would have been reviewed much more favourably. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, guys, down below in the comment section. If I haven't revealed my review yet, stay tuned for that. But if you have, if you've watched my review, if you've watched this, are you going to be watching the movie? Does this put you off? Does this fill you with more confidence? Tell me your thoughts. I'd really love to hear them. So drop them down below. But for the next topic today, what we'll be doing is touching on Chris Hemsworth. He sat down with Variety and was discussing, it's just a big piece on Chris Hemsworth. But interestingly enough, we now learn exactly why this man turned down Star Trek 4. Really, really interesting. And it's to do with him trying to better his career, which makes sense because he was great in Thor. And he's not really done much since. He's had a few roles here and there. He's now going into MIB. He did the Star Trek role initially. He's not done much, but he's getting better and better. So it is natural that he would be much more selective with his roles. And that comes down to this here. So he says he's got a more selective with experience. He turned down the Star Trek sequel because he wasn't sold on the script. I didn't feel like we landed on a reason to revisit that yet. I didn't want to be underwhelmed by what I was going to bring to the table. Great. Really, really great. Now, a lot of people had said it was a pay dispute, which that was unconfirmed, but this is straight from the horse's mouth. And if he's turning around and saying, yeah, it was crap, basically, I'd hasten to believe him. I would genuinely believe him. It's seldom do people come out and just say, yeah, the script was rubbish, when it wasn't the case. So I would genuinely believe him. I'd like to see him back in the Star Trek films. I didn't hate the Star Trek films. I'd like to see them come back. It's good to see Star Trek on the big screen. But what do you guys think about this? Do you think it was a pay dispute, or do you think this is, now a PR spin, or do you think this is the truth? Do you really think that the script was just utter trash? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. Now, let's move on to our final topic, which is Hellboy. This movie, it just keeps coming and coming and coming. Interestingly enough, he's basically said that there was just crap going on behind the scenes, which is what we'd already heard anyway. Like the directors and producers butting heads, this big cluster of a movie. He's turned around and gave the awful analogy of like chocolate. So he says, we did our best, but there's so many voices that go into these things, and they're not always going to work out. I did what I could do, and I feel proud of what I did, but ultimately I'm not in control of a lot of those things. The problem that I have with comic book movies nowadays is that I think, and it's a result of the power of Marvel stuff, it's like chocolate. It's a flavour. So this is a really weird analogy that he's using. So everybody goes, chocolate is delicious, and these guys make the best chocolate. So as you judge the movies, it's like, well, it's not as chocolatey as this. This does not taste like chocolate at all. And I sort of want a world where there's more flavours than just comparisons to chocolate. So in that way, when Hellboy is viewed on the chocolate spectrum, it does very poorly. That being said, it also has major problems. What? And then And then he absolutely shits on his own movie. And I mean shits on it. I think as a rental, or as a movie that you see on an airplane, I think you'd be like, oh, that was fun. Because it's a fun movie. And I think it was unfairly bludgeoned as a result of these comparisons. I mean, you don't need to shit on your own film, David Harbour, mate. I think it's like a beer flick. It's a popcorn flick. You watch it at home with some popcorn and beer, you'll have a riot with it. It's not great by any stretch of the imagination. It's not horrendous. He's really underselling it, to be perfectly honest. So, guys, that wraps it up here for me. That is all I have time for today on the wrap-up. There may be another episode of this later on in the day, but I need to get to work on my review of Godzilla King of the Monsters. Guys, if you don't already, please do follow me over on Twitter and Instagram at Mr. H Reviews. Normally, there would be a viewer section where I will answer some questions, but unfortunately, there's not been enough coming through. So if you do want to get your question answered at the end of this, the wrap-up, then please do leave it down below in the comment section by using the hashtag #TheWrapUp. Guys, if you are new here, please do hit subscribe to stay up to date on this daily dose of pop culture and movie news. Thanks so much for watching. As always, I've been Mr. H. Take care.